In this world, land is so last season thanks to a bunch of giants, magical, armored insects. Humanity has been kicked off solid ground and now lives in floating cities. To fight off these airborne pests, wizards basically, aerial combat mages with badass magical abilities became a thing. Kanata Age, a guy living in the sky-high wizard academy city of Mistgun. Once upon a time, he was the golden boy, the legendary Black Master Swordsman of the elite S-128 special team. But for reasons, he's now known as the traitor and has gone from hero to zero in the eyes of pretty much everyone. As if his reputation wasn't bad enough, Kanata gets stuck with the absolute worst gig, training E-601, a team so hopeless they've racked up 10 consecutive losses. Can Kanata turn this disaster squad into something resembling a winning team? Or is he doomed to babysit a trio of lovable misfits forever? Kanata Age, better known as Kronos or the Black Master Swordsman, was once the unbeatable ace of the S-128 team. But in a fateful battle, when his teammate Yuri Floster collapsed, he made the ultimate hero move, luring the enemies away and fighting them alone. What he didn't realize at the time, that decision would earn him the title of traitor from almost the entire city of Mistgun. 6 months later, he's gone from elite warrior to doing grunt work in the logistics wing, avoiding fights and keeping a low profile. Not exactly the glorious life of a swordsman. Just when Kanata thinks he's safely faded into the background, his old friend and former teammate Lloyd Alwyn, one of the only 2 people who don't think he's a backstabbing villain, shows up with news. Freon Flael, head of the Sky Wizards division, wants to see him. But before he even makes it to the meeting, Kanata embarks on what might be the worst streak of bad luck in human history. First, he accidentally bumps into Misora Watale, ruining her strawberry jam sandwich. And just like that, he's branded a pervert. While fleeing the scene, he stumbles upon Rico Flamel, who is too busy admiring herself in a mirror to listen to reason. Unfortunately, when she notices he isn't wearing pants, she also yells pervert. For the grand finale, he unknowingly hides in a girl's restroom, only to run into Lekti Eisenach on the way out. Her reaction? You guessed it. Pervert. Kanata is not having a good day. By the time he finally arrives at the academy, he's already lost half his dignity. But things are about to get even worse. His childhood friend, Chloe Savani, has arranged for him to become the instructor of Team E-601. Kanata is highly skeptical, especially because Chloe is wearing that smirk, the one that always means trouble. To make matters worse, Freon is visibly unhappy about the whole thing, making it painfully clear she has no faith in him. However, Chloe vouches for him, saying she knows he's still been working hard in the background, even if no one else sees it. Begrudgingly, Kanata accepts the job, knowing full well it's going to be an absolute nightmare. Thus begins Kanata's very reluctant new career as Team E-601's instructor. Between a city that still sees him as a traitor, a team that's probably a disaster, and his newly earned reputation as the world's unluckiest pervert, Misora isn't exactly thrilled about having Kanata as their new instructor, but he couldn't care less. If they have a problem with it, he tells them to take it up with the Sky Wizards department. Confidence oozing, he declares that as Kronos, he can make them stronger, even stronger than himself, and turn them into a team capable of crushing the best of the best. Rico, however, isn't buying it. As a self-proclaimed goddess, she insists she doesn't need training, but Kanata casually drops the fact, according to Sky Wizards data, her skill level is actually below Misora's. That little reality check is enough to make her agree, but not without dramatically warning him not to fall in love with her after seeing her in action, because obviously, how could anyone resist? Meanwhile, Yuri has been badgering Chloe about Kanata's status yet again. Is he still on sick leave? For the 6th time this week, Chloe tells her yes, but also that he's now officially the instructor of an E-ranked fire team. This does not sit well with Yuri, who fumes over the fact that Kanata has been avoiding real missions, hiding out in logistics, and now somehow scoring a cushy instructor role. Chloe shuts her down fast, telling her not to talk trash about Kanata. He does want to protect the city, he's just taking a different approach. Cut to the skies, where Kanata takes E-601 on a trial run. It's a disaster. Teamwork? Non-existent. Misora is all bravado and energy, but at least she has solid stamina. Lekti? Technically talented, but falls apart under pressure. Rico actually shows promise by combining Lekti's hand-to-hand combat with her own sniping skills, but her attacks are so predictable that even a blindfolded enemy could probably dodge them. Kanata has his work seriously cut out for him. Later, the inevitable happens. Inside the locker room, Misora, Lekti, and Rico are changing, and Misora is in the middle of yet another self-conscious meltdown about her less than generous chest size. Enter Kanata, whose terrible or legendary timing gets him caught in yet another highly incriminating situation. Cue the screaming, accusations, and yet another pervert added to his ever-growing rap sheet. Kanata kicks off training for Team E-601, but Rico isn't having any of it. She flat out refuses to participate and storms off, leaving Kanata with just Misora and Lekti to work with. Not missing a beat, he assigns Lekti the highly rigorous training task of handing out flyers for a cafe called Garden Terrace, while dressed as a maid. As for Misora, her mission is to spy on Rico and uncover any weaknesses. Totally normal training methods. Nothing to see here. Misora tries to be sneaky, but Rico catches her almost immediately. Thinking Thinking fast, Misora turns her mission into a shopping trip with Riko, but the only thing she learns is that Riko has an embarrassing love for all things cute. Meanwhile, Lecty struggles with talking to strangers but slowly builds up confidence as she hands out flyers. Just as she thinks she's done, Kanata, casually sipping his coffee, tells her that for her next training session, she'll be working as a waitress. Instant panic. Elsewhere, Yuri literally crashes into real Nua, a researcher from the alchemist department, spilling her drink all over him. For real, it's love at first spill, because nothing says romance like soda stains and awkward apologies. As she frantically tries to wipe off his pants, Chloe calls her away, and in the rush, she forgets her handkerchief. Real, now hopelessly smitten, clutches it like a treasure. Back at the cafe, Lecty's social anxiety reaches critical levels, and she bolts. Misora, ever the leader, chases after her, offering to help. But there's a problem. Kanata only brought 2 uniforms, which means Misora ends up in a bunny girl outfit. Still nervous, Lecty is approached by Lloyd, who reminds her that acknowledging a weakness is the first step in overcoming it. Inspired by Misora's determination, Lecty gives it another shot and finally manages to serve customers. Meanwhile, Freon, watching from a distance, starts getting suspicious about what exactly the traitor is up to. Later, Misora complains to Kanata about his bizarre training, but Lecty surprises everyone by thanking him. She asks if he knew about her social anxiety all along, and he confirms it. Someone with her power and heritage should have been way more impressive in their trial run, but her anxiety held her back. Lecty admits she hates how nervous she gets around people, but Kanata reassures her that no one is perfect. The key is understanding your problem, because that means you can find a solution. Kanata then turns to Misora and asks how her mission went. Defeated, she admits she failed, but instead of scolding her, he buys ice cream for both of them. Misora is confused why reward her when she failed as both a trainee and a leader. Kanata simply says, "You realized you have more to learn. That's progress." He then tells Lecty to keep training and lets Misora off the hook for spying on Riko. The exercise wasn't about Riko, it was about her. Later that night, Chloe sneaks into Kanata's room. Kanata points out that this is, in fact, the men's dorm, but Chloe brushes him off just like old times, right? She notices him analyzing Misora's combat data and asks what he's got planned for her. The next day, Kanata drops a bombshell on Misora. He wants her to ditch the Vanguard Magic Cannon sword, which she completely sucks at, and switch to Middle Guard Magic Cannon, which suits her insane magical reserves and stamina way better. But Misora is not having it. She flat out refuses. Even if it'll make her stronger, she won't accept it. Feeling completely betrayed, she calls him a terrible instructor and storms off. In another floating city, a fiery red-haired warrior named Sosie Witali single-handedly obliterates a swarm of beetles like it's just another Tuesday. Turns out, this total powerhouse was Misora's mother, and she's long gone. Fast forward to the present. Misora stands by her mother's grave in the Hills of Hope, the resting place of fallen sky wizards. She's fuming over Kanata's decision to switch her from Vanguard Magic Cannon sword to Middle Guard Magic Cannon. Meanwhile, Lecty, still pushing through her maid cafe training arc, delivers coffee to the Sky Wizard's leader's office, where Lloyd, being Lloyd, praises her progress, sending her into a blushing mess. Inside, Freon interrogates Chloe about Kanata's questionable training method. Chloe casually tells her to just ask Kanata herself, but Freon doubts she'll get a straight answer. On her way back, Lecty runs into Riko and asks her to train together, since Misora's been MIA for days. Riko scoffs, sweaty training, not for a goddess like her. But then Lecty casually drops the fact that she's starting to trust Kanata. Riko, now mildly intrigued, wonders what Kanata's deal really is. Elsewhere, real Nua, love-struck scientist extraordinaire, waits to return Yuri's handkerchief, complete with a love letter stuffed inside. But before he he spots Yuri and Kanata talking. Yuri is tearing into Kanata for skipping E601's training, even accusing him of being a traitor. Kanata, he just thanks her for caring and walks away. Real. Witnessing this, drops the handkerchief and his love turns into full-blown obsession. Later, Kanata stops by Little Wing, a restaurant that also happens to be Misora's home. Upon seeing him, Misora immediately flips out. Her dad, Gale, scolds her, but she tells him to butt out. Kanata, ever the instigator, casually comments that Misora and Gale don't look alike. Gale just laughs and admits she takes after her late mother. Misora storms off while Gale apologizes for her less than warm welcome. Over steak, Kanata brings up Misora's attachment to the magic cannon sword. Gale realizes Kanata isn't just some random guy, and when Kanata admits he's Misora's instructor, Gale spills the tea. Sosie was one of the strongest sky wizards in their old city, but when she died fighting beetles, something bizarre happened. All naturals lost their memories of her. Gale knows they were married, but he remembers nothing about her. Misora's obsession with the sword, it's not just about strength, it's her way of holding on to her mother's memory. In another flashback, a young Misora eagerly awaits her mother's return, and when Sosie finally arrives, she embraces her family like a hero coming home. She's an unstoppable warrior on the battlefield, but a total disaster at home, blowing up household appliances, messing up laundry, you name it. But before they can enjoy too much family time, duty calls, and Sosie is sent back to battle. One night, after another mission, Sosie takes Misora on a magical flight, sharing her sky wizard philosophy, protecting people is what they do. But then, she never comes home. A confused Misora asks her dad when she'll return, and Gale, now memory wiped flat out, tells her, "We don't have a mother in this house." Panicked, she runs through town, begging people to remember Sosie, but no one does. Then, the officials arrive, sword in hand, and deliver the news Sosie is dead. From that moment on, Misora vows to become a sky wizard like her mother. Back in the present, Misora is spiraling, frustrated at herself for not getting stronger. Kanata finds her and takes her to the Hills of Hope, where she immediately lashes out at him for prying into her past. Kanata calmly tells her Gale only shared it because he's worried about her. Then, he drops a bombshell. He wants her to swear on her mother's grave to abandon the magic cannon sword. Misora is furious. The sword isn't just a weapon, it's her mother's will, her memories, and a traitor like Kanata wouldn't understand. But Kanata challenges her. Was her mother's goal to protect people, or just that sword? He recalls his conversation with Gale, how Gale fears that if Misora dies, he'll feel nothing, just like when Sosie died. Kanata promises him that won't happen. Still, Misora refuses to let go of the sword. Kanata just laughs. He likes crazy people like her. So instead, he offers a hint on how to actually get good with it. Misora demands to know if this was all a test. Kanata smirks. Her path is a tough one. He needed to see if she had the resolve to walk it. Instead of swearing to abandon the sword, he tells her to swear to be even stronger than Sosie to protect others, and also herself. The next day, Misora finally returns to training. Lekti is thrilled. Kanata gets a quick and reluctant thanks before Misora flies off. And Riko, watching from a balcony, admits, okay, maybe the instructor is kind of interesting after all. Riko's dreaming again. Same old nightmare of chasing after her sister Freon, who's surrounded by fans while little Riko gets left in the dust. Her dream ends abruptly when Freon barges in, scolding her for being a lazy bum. Riko, unfazed, declares that a goddess like her isn't bound by something as trivial as school schedules. Meanwhile, Kanata and Lloyd are chilling at a cafe, where Lloyd is oddly impressed with Kanata. Before Kanata can ask why, Yuri interrupts, because of course she does, and asks how Kanata can stand being the most hated man in Mistgun. He and Lloyd ignore her, casually discussing E601's next opponents, Fire Team E571. Yuri, clearly not enjoying being sidelined, calls E601 weak and reminds them that their instructor is, a traitor. Kanata, ever the optimist, says that's actually an advantage. Zero expectations means zero pressure. Yuri storms off, probably questioning her life choices, while Lloyd follows to calm her down. Riko finally rolls into school and bumps into Kanata at the cafe. She explains that her delay was caused by an unsettling sight in the shower. Kanata asks if she saw a ghost. Nope, just her own overwhelming beauty. Kanata cracks up, calling her hilarious. Riko, momentarily caught off guard, remembers how everyone used to think she was a weak idiot compared to her sister. Spotting Kanata's notes on E571, she asks if he seriously thinks their team has a shot. He does. She remains skeptical. Over in the locker room, Misora and Lekti are hyped about their training progress. Kanata strolls in and offers to treat them to ice cream. Misora declines, which instantly raises Kanata's suspicion. They then go find Riko and try to recruit her for training. Riko refuses, insisting that humiliation isn't her thing. Desperate, Misora literally drops to her knees to beg. Kanata intervenes before things get too dramatic, physically lifting Misora off the ground. Elsewhere, Freon and Chloe are discussing some mysterious chimera causing trouble. Chloe assures her that the Nirvana team will handle it, but Freon seems suspiciously interested in E601's progress. Back with Team E601, Kanata tells Riko he actually agrees that fighting a losing battle is dumb, but whining about your odds is even worse. Riko tries to brush him off, but he casually hands Misora the key to victory, leaving Riko stewing. That night, Riko has the same dream again. On her way to school, she catches real spying on Yuri, mumbling about how Kanata must have tricked her. Riko calls him a stalker, and he bolts, not suspicious at all. Training time. Kanata teaches Misora a new OP move, Strike Blaster, a one-hit kill laser attack that drains a ton of magic. Misora manages to use it, but gets exhausted quickly. She wonders how Kanata could do this stuff so easily back in the day, until she notices he's also struggling. What's up with that? He brushes it off and casually rests his hand on her head, which she immediately calls out. His excuse, "You're the perfect height for a hand rest." Meanwhile, Riko watches from a balcony, judging their suspiciously flirty training dynamic. When Kanata praises Lekti's progress, even she starts blushing. Riko, now very confused, wonders if maybe Kanata's training isn't total nonsense. Kanata then sneaks up behind her and calls out her pink glasses, correctly guessing they help her use her clairvoyance ability. Riko's stunned. He knew all along. Kanata explains that her real strength isn't just her vision, but her sniping, decision-making, and tactics. He tells her flat out, "I need you." Riko turns tomato red, but then he follows up with, "It's up to you, stay a loser or stay step up. That one hits deep. She pictures Freon in her head, and suddenly, the choice is clear. The next day, Lecty and Misora arrive at training only to find Rico already there, waiting. Kanata watches, grinning. Finally, all three keys are in place. Match day. E601 versus E571. Barely anyone shows up to watch, and E571 immediately starts trash talking. Rico, unimpressed, calls them low-caliber losers. Kanata tells his team to shake off the nerves and get ready to upset everyone's expectations. But just as the match is about to start, alert. The sirens blare. The armored beetles are coming. That's the end of the recap. Let us know if you want part 2 by leaving a comment in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to avoid being virgin forever. See you guys in the next video.